Okay, good evening, everybody. Would like to welcome you to our Neighborhood 4 meeting tonight. This is going to be a new experience for us, even though this is our fourth meeting. As you can see from the video, there's not anyone in the room tonight. In WebEx, we haven't had any joiners yet, but we do have a few of you on Facebook Live, so we specifically welcome you tonight. This is an important conversation, and we value your time that you're willing to spend with us tonight as we have this conversation about growth in Idaho Falls, but more specifically in your neighborhood. Carrie, can you click up PowerPoint for me? There we go. Okay, sorry about that delay. We've only scheduled 75 minutes for the meeting tonight, and so we want to make sure that we are respectful of your time and your commitment. And so I'd like to just walk through the agenda and what we hope to cover. We're going to start off by just talking a little bit about the Imagine IF project and what we intend to do with it. Talk a little bit about the challenges of growth, and we're going to get to know your neighborhood for a few minutes, and then talk about three of our priority topics and conversations. First, talking about healthy communities, and then housing, which is of course a big issue in Idaho Falls, and then transportation and connectivity. And we'll spend a few more minutes at the end just kind of wrapping up and invite you to participate with us a little bit more in some other ways. So let's talk a little bit about how to participate tonight. There are three ways. One is you can participate verbally. Now to do that, you'll need to be on WebEx. So if you're on Facebook tonight, certainly use the comments. Make heavy use of those comments. And we have a staff member assigned to monitor those and to enter comments into our online system that I'll introduce here in just a moment, and read them out loud as well, so they're part of the record. If you're on WebEx, you can also use the chat feature, lower right-hand corner. If you click on the button that says chat, you can make sure that you're sending it to everyone and type in your message, hit enter, and we'll see that. We have a staff member assigned to watch for those comments as well. So what we'll make the most use of tonight is Poll Everywhere. This is a software that allows us to all participate remotely and interact, and we will see your responses and comments live here on the screens behind me and on the screens that will be shared. They're being shared right now on WebEx. So I want to talk a little bit about how to use that. Most of the questions you'll see tonight, or if you're watching this video later, this will be available for the next week. You will see a lot of screens that look like this. And there are three things that you need to know about this. These are open-ended questions that will ask you to respond, and you can respond as many times as you want. What you'll first do is enter your comment here in the circled area and hit enter. And we would ask you that rather than writing a whole bunch of answers and hitting enter, hit enter after each one. And that'll make a little bit more sense here in just a moment as to why we're asking that. But enter as many as you want, hitting enter after each one. The second thing to be aware of is that you can agree with or disagree with other people's comments. So if you give somebody a thumbs up, then you're saying that you agree with that comment. If you give it a thumbs down, you're disagreeing with that comment. And so we'll start to see which answers rise to the top and which ones sort of fall to the bottom. Now, again, if you're watching this video, you will not actually see this. You'll just enter your own comments, and we'll do some work on our end to assemble all of the comments that are similar. Third, if you're watching tonight, you'll see this area here that says all caught up or load more responses. This lets you know when there's more responses available for you to vote on. So you can tap on that button, it'll turn yellow and say load more comments. So tap on that, and more people's comments will appear, and you can like them or dislike them or leave them alone. So this is really how we encourage you to participate, and we want to help you get logged in now. So the first thing to do is go to pollev.com/Idaho Falls. Now, if you're in Facebook, on Facebook tonight, that link was posted in the comments section, so you can just click on that and open that in a new tab, or you can also pull out your mobile phone or tablet, however you want to do that. This is the recommended way to participate, although you see on the screen that you can text your responses. Though there are a lot of questions that you will not be able to actually do that. So if you'll go ahead and pull out your device or open a new browser window, go to pollev.com/Idaho Falls. There's also an app you can download, however you want to do it. that this will work for you. Now, if you're having trouble getting logged in, please put a note either in the WebEx chat or in the Facebook comments, and we'll have a staff member respond and try to get you hooked up. Now, because we don't have anybody on WebEx, this might be an interesting question. But
There are a couple people.
oh, we have some folks on WebEx now. Welcome. We're so glad you're here. Great. And we have somebody answering. This is perfect. What we want to ask first is, where do you live? This does a couple of things for us. It helps us understand where geographically people are who are online with us tonight. And that way we can also correlate answers as we go throughout the rest of the poll. It also is just a good opportunity for you to get logged in and experiment with the software. So go ahead and tell us where you are at. So we have somebody in Area 1, so up in the Fairway Estates Heritage Hills area, somebody from Area 4, South downtown or downtown areas. So welcome to those who are participating. And yeah, so hopefully the system is easy enough to use as we go throughout the questions tonight. Now, one thing I've been asked in previous meetings to make sure is clear is that if for some reason this isn't working for you tonight, or we're moving too fast, these questions will all be available at our website, imagineif.city, for the next week. So you can still log in and take these questions anytime over the next 7 days. So, okay, so it looks like most of our participants tonight are up in Area 1, which is great. And again, we welcome you. So let's spend, that question should stay live for a minute as I go ahead and move through the slide deck here. Let's just talk a little bit about what ImagineIF is all about. So Idaho Falls is a great place to live. And it's a great community, but it's no secret that Idaho Falls is growing. And you see that in the construction projects, you see it in the housing prices, the new stores, and even the traffic. And those growth issues are not expected to slow down. Idaho Falls has been discovered and more people are coming here. And you can see just even in, whoa, what just happened? Is there something meaning on that keyboard? Yeah. I'm sorry about this, folks. We're gonna back that up. Not sure. There's always a technical difficulty at some point in the meeting. We've had it early, so that's good. So let's look at some of this data that's available to us. When we think about growth, obviously there's population growth, and you can see that on the graph on the left. The numbers aren't critical, but Idaho Falls has steadily grown at 1 to 1.5% per year for many, many decades. And as we get bigger, that 1 to 1.5% starts to look different, sort of that compounding interest principle. But the other thing that we are a little bit concerned about as a city is how much land we're using per person. As you can see on the right, that's also going up. And so those are the things that lead to sprawl. The more land we consume per person and we're not efficient with our land, that's an expensive way to grow. And so we need to think differently about how we grow as a city, especially if we're going to continue this rapid growth period that we seem to be in. And as I mentioned, these issues aren't expected to change. Idaho Falls offers so many reasons for people to come here, whether it's the fiber network that allows people to work from home with great internet access, whether it's INL and the great jobs that they bring in the major projects with small modular reactors that are expected to bring thousands of employees to our area, or whether it's the access to world-class recreation in some of the most beautiful places on earth. Idaho Falls is a great place to be. Now, add to all of that we've been named, things like best small city to start a business. That we're number 13 in the U.S. for job growth. That we're one of the best small cities to move to. Top 100 places to live. We're on these lists consistently. Most recently, Idaho Falls was named the best performing city in America by the Milken Institute. This is a great place to be. Now, with that being said, when we talk about growth, I think this Facebook comment really expresses how a lot of folks feel. When the question was, tell us what you think about growth, we heard stop it. That's my opinion. And I think a lot of folks would like for the growth to stop, or at least slow down, and sometimes so would we. But we don't expect that to happen. So what we want to talk about is, if we can't stop growth, how do we manage it? And how do we make sure that it is done in an effective way and in a sensitive way for the folks who are already here? So what we plan to do tonight is gather your opinions. You may have questions tonight. Our plan is to not answer a lot of questions. Our plan is to just gather information from you And then what we'll do is we'll come back in the summer and present some of the responses to your ideas, questions later as we do another round of this. So let's start to get to know your neighborhood. So those of you who are logged into Poll Everywhere, this question should be on your screen now. What makes your neighborhood a great place to live? And again, if you're struggling with Poll Everywhere, feel free to either unmute and just tell us verbally. Feel free to use the chat. Feel free to use the comments. But tell us what makes your neighborhood a great place to live. Why do you live where you live? We'll give you just a moment to let those populate. I know there's a little bit of a delay on Facebook for those watching there. Is there anything showing up in comments or on the chat? Okay. Lots of young families. Yeah. Makes the place vibrant and exciting. Good place to be. Any others out there? Great neighbors, great city services. Yeah, quiet, well-kept neighborhood. So these are actually really good things that we like to hear, because when you talk about lots of families and great neighbors, it means that you're connecting with each other as well. And that's an important part of a healthy neighborhood, as we'll talk about in just a moment. Quiet streets, you feel like it's safe. That's great. These are all great answers. Let's give this just one more minute here. Close to coffee shops, stores. Getting a couple of votes on some of those answers. Great neighbors. Isn't it great to live in a place where you know your neighbors and have good relationships with them? That's such an important part of our daily lives that sometimes we take for granted. Old houses are cool. This must be one of our folks down in Area 4. Yeah, so we're so glad that you see the positive in your neighborhood. And the reason we want to lead with this question also really ties into our next question. So I'm going to give this like a 3 count. I'm going to switch slides. Balanced access to living stores and parks. Yeah, this is great. So all of these things that you love. Now, as you think about growth, what are you concerned will change about your neighborhood? What are you worried will change about all of those things that you love? We have a comment on Facebook.
Yeah, so Chandra Bergen says they still have farmland around and not a lot of people.
Okay.
Referring to the previous question.
Okay. We'll make sure that gets entered. Thank you for that comment. Anything on WebEx? Yeah, okay. So increased traffic issues. Yeah, very, very common concern that's popping up in all of our neighborhood meetings. Highway 20 being routed close to my neighborhood. Yeah, definitely a concern, especially up in the northern part of the neighborhood that we're talking about. That's very a reality, and appreciate you bringing that up. Any others? Any other concerns that you have about what growth could do to your neighborhood? Give this one just another minute here. Think about any other comments. Here we go. Yeah, more cars driving excess speeds and developments, fewer street parking spots. Yeah, so you can see a theme. I think this is again really common around the cities. Every neighborhood we talk to, there's this concern about traffic and speed, which relates to those of you who said you really love that your neighborhoods are safe. That's definitely a safety concern. Okay, so we'll just give this about 10 or 15 more seconds as you think through your concerns about growth, and then we'll go on to the next one. Okay. Well, again, you're welcome to continue to answer these questions over the next 7 days at imagineif.city. So feel free to visit and take this. Here we go. One more. Your neighbors are interested in improving the neighborhood. Okay. I'm guessing that was probably for question 2. You have a comment on WebEx?
Facebook Live, Linda Bright says increased crime.
Increased crime, right? So if our staff member doing polymer work at enter increased crime for us. I'll show up here in just a second. Okay, so this question is going to stay live, so feel free to keep answering this. I'm going to move on with the slide deck and continue the presentation. So let's start talking about healthy communities. We're going to shift gears and talk about how some of these things relate to growth in our neighborhood and in our health. So let me ask you a question. What is the biggest predictor of life expectancy right now in the United States? And shockingly and surprisingly, the answer is your zip code. Where you live matters more than anything else in terms of determining your life expectancy. And that to me just begs the question, why? Why does it matter if I live on one side of a town or another? And how does that affect my overall health? And it really comes down to this idea of thinking about the 7 dimensions of health and wellness, is that more and more communities are recognizing that how we build our communities matters. And even though we talk about health, our minds naturally go to our physical health. It's so much more than that. It's our social and economic health, occupational, environmental, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual health. And so when you think about how communities grow and build and develop, we can design communities that make it easy and convenient to walk and bike and not have to use an automobile for everything. Or we can design wide roads that are fast and spread things out across the city where it's not practical to use alternative modes of transportation. We can build neighborhoods with places that allow people to connect and get together and gather and socialize. Or we can have neighborhoods that promote isolation and loneliness. All of the things that we do in our growth in some way contribute to these 7 dimensions of health and wellness. So with that in mind, I'm going to ask you this next question. When you think about those 7 dimensions of health, how healthy do you feel your neighborhood is right now? So you just tap on one of these colorful faces and let us know how you feel about your neighborhood's health. Feel like it's a pretty healthy place to live? We've got one comment there, a couple of folks feeling pretty good, but maybe with a little bit of room for improvement. Okay, maybe a more neutral. There we go. We've got one that's just in great shape. Not seeing anybody on the far negative, which is a good sign. We'll give this just another couple of seconds. How healthy do you feel your neighborhood is? Okay, so it looks like most folks online with us tonight are feeling pretty good about where they live. Generally a healthy place, but maybe a little bit of room for improvement. So we recently completed a healthy communities assessment with a consulting planner out of Boise, who his specialty is to look at data points that indicate how healthy a neighborhood is. There are 60 data points. And as you can see here on the map, this is the neighborhood that we're talking about tonight. There's a range, right? So tier 1, that darker color, has the highest levels of risk for negative health outcomes. And you can see there's quite a disparity between the north and south part of the neighborhood that we're talking about, ranging from tier 1 in the south all the way to tier 4, which has the least amount of health risks up in the northern part. Now, the good news is the neighborhood that's currently showing tier 1 has so much potential to correct and to improve. It has so much of the infrastructure that we talk about in increasing connectivity and access to green space and access to services. So there's so much that can be done. Although this looks fairly negative, it also shows so many opportunities for improvement. So I want to ask you now, again, thinking about how you feel about your neighborhood's health, what are some things you think could be done to improve your neighborhood's health? And now you can talk about short-term, you can talk about long-term, say a small park in Fairway Estates. Yeah, Fairway Estates is an interesting case study because I think sometimes we think about the golf course being there as a great big park, but the reality is it's not something you walk onto and play on with your kids. So that's kind of been left out of that neighborhood. Making sure the integrity of South Capitol Park is protected. Yeah. Definitely a lot of conversation about that issue right now, for sure. I think that the recognition that those parks in our neighborhood are important places. What else do you think can be done to improve your neighborhood's health? Give you just another moment here. And again, feel free to think about short-term, medium-term, long-term, quick fixes, difficult fixes, anything that you think could improve your neighborhood's health. Yeah, more parks and beautification in general. again, very common that we're hearing around the city as we do these neighborhood meetings, expanding the green belt, Freedom Park to the golf course. Yeah, the downtown grocery store, that's a great example. Yeah, a couple of you are talking about expanding the Riverwalk further north. Getting some more votes there. Yeah, thank you so much for these comments. It's great. Anything showing up in Facebook or on the chat? Yeah, okay. Oh, we have one there on WebEx.
Sidewalks to Freeman Park.
Sidewalks to Freeman Park, okay. Great. Yeah, so you can start to see that there is some at least consensus here for folks tonight that getting that Riverwalk north, that's a great thing. Give you more opportunity, not only for a place to walk, but that green belt then connects you with a place that offers services. We'll talk about more in later in the meeting tonight. So as you're finishing up your answers here, let me just briefly introduce the next topic that Carrie from our staff will talk about, and that's housing. Housing is a huge issue in Idaho Falls right now. It's no secret. And housing directly ties to health issues. Housing is health. If you don't have secure, stable, affordable housing, so many other things are that much more difficult. So I'm going to invite Kerry to come and he'll talk with you about housing this evening.
Okay, so my name is Kerry Buehler. I'm a planner in the city planning office. As Brad mentioned, housing is an important issue. We're seeing a lot of people concerned with this issue. And home prices are rising rapidly. Construction costs also are increasing very rapidly. And we can see this as we compare past projections with what our current reality is. And so as you see here on the slide, in 2017, they were actually projecting the median home value in 2020 to be $164,000. But what we're seeing in the current reality from websites today is that median price is upwards of 250 and above. And if you're someone who keeps a pulse on the market, you would probably tell me that that's even increased substantially from when I made these slides. And so we realize that is going to be an ongoing concern. And we hear from real estate professionals and also those looking to purchase homes all the time that there's just not, there's very limited supply, but there's a high demand. And that makes it challenging for the city as a whole and for each individual. So this first question, keeping that in mind, what do you think about your neighborhood as it compares to affordability? Is your neighborhood an affordable place to live? If you haven't maybe purchased a home recently or tried to secure a rental unit, you might not be as familiar with that. But what are your impressions, or what are you hearing from friends and family that maybe you're talking to? Okay, so right now it's somewhat of an even split of yes and no. Perfect. And again, these questions will stay live for a week, so feel free to jump in and answer these questions. So right now, for your neighborhood, it's more of a mixed bag as far as whether you think it's that affordable. Good. Okay, thinking about the overall condition of housing in your neighborhood, what about the livability of housing? So this question really goes more to sort of the state of homes in your neighborhood, or are things maintained? Or is it still like it's a place that is pretty livable? Not only are there some of the amenities and things we've been talking about that relate to our health, but people keep up their properties, their vehicles, other things that maybe you would think about as you're looking at. Okay, great. So currently, we're looking somewhere in the middle and then going up from there. So that's at least a good sign that things are maybe stable and people are fairly active about their properties. We're not seeing any comments in the orange or the red, so that's a good indication as well. Okay. So as the city grows, what concerns do you have about housing in your neighborhood? And this could be anything. Obviously, the city is going to grow. But what would concern you about housing? in your specific name. Maybe just a minute to type in your answers. So. Are there things that trouble you or things that you've seen happen in other neighborhoods that you would be concerned about? Any comments on Facebook or in the chat?
Chris Jensen, property taxes rising.
Okay, sure. Property taxes. Okay, great. Okay, here comes some. Okay, the interstate expansion. Okay, home values. Perfect. Okay, good. Crowded and playgrounds. Okay, so that comes back to some of what was talked about. Perfect. Okay. Less attention on beautifying the area and focusing on newer neighborhoods. Okay, great. Okay, these are perfect. We definitely want to know what concerns you have so that we can try to look for ways that we can address those.
Comment on Facebook.
Okay.
Linda says affordable community housing for seniors.
Okay, affordable homes for seniors. Okay, that's certainly a demographic we need to think about. Perfect. Okay. Okay, so now talked about some of your concerns. What ideas would you have for improving housing? Could be things similar to that comment regarding, having some affordable homes for seniors, figuring out what that looks like. Are there other things that would help? What's your name? Okay. Community activities that would be engaging for residents. And again, I think this is becoming kind of a common theme, that proximity to green space and not just to open areas, but to active green space, maybe where you can actually engage in some things. Perfect. Okay. Okay, speed limit signs on Cabrera specifically. Okay, active HOA. Similar areas of Snake River Landing with smaller houses that are located in the green space. And then, of course, balancing housing with services and employment areas. Great. That certainly is a challenge as we grow. How do we balance the need for services with the need for housing and for other things? Perfect. Okay. This is great. Okay, well, as again, this will stay up for a week, so if other ideas come to you, please feel free to go on and include additional comments or ideas that you have. Or again, tell people that you know to get on and share with us their ideas as well. Developing empty lots, I saw there as well. Okay, roundabouts, maybe more efficient use of our transportation system. Perfect. These are great ideas. Okay, we did want to talk too, and some of the comments have alluded somewhat to this, but one of the solutions that have been talked about in our previously city plans and a way to try to address housing affordability and housing availability is this goal from the 2013 city plan, our current city plan. And it identified the need to have residential development reflect the economic and social diversity of Idaho Falls. That we should encourage new and existing development, should foster inclusiveness and connectivity through a mix of housing types, sizes, as well as neighborhood connections through paths. So some of those same things that we're hearing commented tonight. So this question, how well do you think your neighborhood reflects this policy goal? Have we done a good job? Are we kind of middle of the road? Or are we not doing so well on being able to provide that mix of housing types, connections to parks, paths, those types of things? Okay. Good. So this we're seeing a little bit all over the board. And got some middle of the road, some thinking we're maybe headed in the right direction, and others thinking we have some improvements in this area we need to make, for sure. Okay. Great. Okay, so moving on, imagine if the city allowed for more housing choice. Since the 1940s, cities and developers, we've had zoning, construction, finance, all of our systems have sort of been designed around effectively delivering that single family house. Single family homes actually in the city of Idaho Falls make up approximately 91% of our housing stock. The apartment buildings have also been somewhat of a straightforward construction type, but this has left this gap in the middle. And so that's what you see represented in this slide, is there's sort of this gap. You have your single family home on one end and your kind of dense apartment complex on the other. But there are all these other sort of housing types that we see in the middle. And we don't see those developed as frequently. But with rising housing costs and changing lifestyles as well, people are looking for housing options that fit their needs. And so this is something that we wanted to also visit with you as a neighborhood about, and just talk through what does that mean? What do you think about this concept with what's missing and providing housing options? So here again, how do you feel about increasing housing choices in your neighborhood? What's your reaction to that? To having maybe some different housing options? Okay, we're right now seeing some favorable comments in the middle. It looks like another comment posted more not as favorable to that. Okay, perfect. And we do have some I'm seeing in the red as well. Maybe that's a concern. Okay, so pretty well across the board. Okay, well, because these housing options aren't as familiar to people because we haven't seen them developed a lot, and you don't find them in every neighborhood, we wanted tonight to kind of talk through what some of those are and how we can look at those things. And so we're going to run through some examples of each of these. We have some questions for you as we do that. But these are all actually Idaho Falls examples. So these are not taken from another community. These are homes that are actually built here in our city today and several neighborhoods throughout the city, actually. And we want to just talk with you and get your impressions about each of these. So where in your neighborhood does a twin home make sense? And you can see the options there, anything ranging from anywhere to a twin home just wouldn't make sense in my current neighborhood. I don't think that it would fit. And a twin home typically, as you see in the photo here, it's actually where you have an attached, the units are attached to each other, but they're on separate units. And usually some sort of similar architecture. Okay, so we're seeing a bit of a spread. A few people thinking it could apply anywhere or along major streets, and then others that maybe it doesn't fit within your neighborhood. This is great. So this will help inform future decisions regarding housing types and housing choice in neighborhoods. This is great feedback. Thank you. Okay, so moving on, I don't want to spend too much time on each of these so we can get to everything, but where in your neighborhood does a duplex make sense? So duplex is going to be somewhat similar to the twin home in the previous slide, except that you usually have two units and they're on the same piece of property. Okay, so again, we're kind of seeing a split, although at least currently right now, it appears that maybe this is an option that could be allowed in most cases in the neighborhood. Okay, perfect. Okay, where in your neighborhood do accessory dwellings make sense? So an accessory dwelling, often you'll hear it maybe referred to as like a mother-in-law apartment or a studio above a garage, something like that. An accessory dwelling could either be attached to the home itself, where it's actually part of the primary home, or it could maybe be in a detached structure, kind of standalone, but usually smaller than the Okay, so this one, at least right now, it's more positive that this could actually be located anywhere. We're up in the 80 percentile, that this would maybe make sense for your neighborhood. Okay, where in your neighborhood do townhomes make sense? So we do see some requests for townhomes fairly regularly. The townhomes that you see here, usually these are attached units that are attached to each other, and usually in groups of 4. Do they make sense? Okay, so we're seeing more towards major intersections, perimeters, those types of things. Okay, maybe to more of the major street network then, or maybe they don't make sense at all. Okay, moving on. Where does a bungalow court make sense? So a bungalow court might be one that we're not as familiar with. But usually a bungalow court is a group of homes that are actually built around kind of a central courtyard or a shared green space or common space. Where would that make sense, or would it make sense? Okay, so well, okay, does it make sense? Now we're seeing a lot of fluctuation, I guess is how I would describe that in the results. So this might be something that will need more further discussion or looking at. Okay, whether it actually makes sense anywhere or maybe nowhere or around perimeters. Okay, so where in your neighborhood does a courtyard apartment make sense? So a courtyard apartment is going to be somewhat similar to a bungalow court, but generally you're probably going to have a few more units related to that common space or green space. And where would that make sense? So again, if you think about that initial slide where we have single family homes on one end and apartment buildings on the other, we're kind of creeping up towards the apartment buildings. So you're going to have a few more units around a courtyard. Okay, so predominantly this would make sense in your neighborhood, seems to be the response, or the majority of the response. Okay. Moving on to our last one, where in your neighborhood does a mid-rise condo or apartment make sense? So again, you're going to get a little bit more units than you'd have in the other examples, but maybe not quite as many units as you'd see in a large apartment complex. And usually some green space and some amenities or something associated with that combination. Okay, so here we're seeing a little bit more diversity in the responses, but more along the perimeter of a neighborhood would make sense. Okay, these are great responses. And like I said, this really does help inform us as we look at possible solutions to housing choices in neighborhoods. What makes sense and what doesn't. Okay, now that we've talked through these examples, what concerns do you have with allowing more housing choice in your neighborhood? What is sort of a red flag to you, or you think would create a concern or something that would need to be addressed by the city if there was more housing choice? Okay, so too many apartments and duplexes fragmenting the community. Okay, so fragmentation of a neighborhood is definitely a concern with many things. We want to make sure we're keeping that connectivity. If we go back to that initial goal, that was part of that, was maintaining that connection. Hey, more crime or property values. Okay. How will increase in housing affect those? For sure, those are things we need to think through. Okay, I'm going to give you just a few more seconds here to populate those. Okay, so I think we're seeing then in some of the comments some trade-offs where additional housing units might bring the ability to have more amenities or some connectivity, but then balancing it with trying to make sure not harming the neighborhood. Okay. These are great feedback, great comments, concerns. Okay, so this is my last question for you. Those housing types that we talked about, and as you see listed here, are there any of those housing types that you marked that wouldn't make sense for your neighborhood? But if there were some specific design regulations, would they make sense if there were design regulations? So when you're thinking about design regulations, usually we're thinking regulating the height, maybe the location on the property or how it addresses the streetscape, those types of things. Even sometimes you can regulate the square footage of a unit, how many, those types of things. Okay. Okay, so we're seeing a little bit of a mixed bag. Accessory dwellings have seemed, and that's consistent with kind of the comments as we went through. Accessory dwellings, I think we were in the 80% tile there, that they made sense in the neighborhood, and here that's continuing to make sense. And then we have some kind of a mixed response with the remaining. Okay, this is extremely helpful, so we appreciate that. We're going to move on now and talk through some transportation and connectivity issues, and I'm going to turn it over to and it's another planner.
Good evening, and I'm Anas Masri, and I will guide our discussion here, where we'll talk more about Imagine F with connectivity and transportation. So far, we covered health and housing. We have one more topic to discuss that affects your neighborhood every day. Now we want to talk about how you get around and how your neighborhood is connected. We will start with a simple poll everywhere, and then advance into several questions to gather your opinions for the future of Imagine F. So with our first question here, question number 21, where do you go most often? Please keep this focused on the region and primarily the city. We understand that you routinely want to exit and return back to the city conveniently. So we'll wait for responses here. You see downtown, coffee, restaurants, markets, supermarkets, Martians. Downtown is growing here. More people are entering downtown. Parks, river walk, work for sure. Green belt, stores, Fremont Park. We still see downtown taking the lead here. Green belt and on. Do we have any comments from the floor that need entering, or do we have any comments on Facebook or WebEx? All right, just keep in mind that any comments that you make on Facebook or WebEx, we have staff who are entering those comments. We're still seeing downtown taking the lead. We'll transition to the next question here. Rank your most common mode of transportation. We are very interested in how you get there. Please let us know that, or let us know what modes of transportation do you use commonly. Bicycles are taking the lead here. Personal car now. People have entered personal car, walking, bicycle, others, taxi, or other paid ride services.
This on WebEx says personal car.
Okay. All right, we are still seeing that personal car taking the lead so far. We'll transition to the next slide. Thinking back to our discussion earlier here about healthy communities. Most communities in the United States spend the vast majority of their money on roads for the automobile. We need to keep in mind other important modes of transportation that represents how healthy our community is and how healthy we can be. Connectivity is the key to success, moving and mobilizing within our city. Imagine being able to get from place to place on foot or by an alternative mode of transportation other than the car. Connectivity has two parts here: places to go to and facilities to get you there. Question number 23. If it is more convenient to get to your common destinations by bike or foot, would you use those modes of transportation more often? So if it's possible to walk to work, to walk to downtown, to bike to the places that you have listed earlier, would you use those modes of transportation as an alternative to a car? We see a majority here agreeing with the question. Do we have any comments on WebEx or Facebook so far?
Not on this question.
Transitioning to the next question. How would you rate your neighborhood's current level of connectivity to daily goods and services? So we're asking, how accessible are eating establishments, retail, work, and exercise from where you live?
And so the private question from WebEx, they're saying they wouldn't take those alternate routes in the winter.
So winter is a challenge. Yeah, we live in a community where we have several months of winter months and snow and ground, for sure. This is a very good comment. So from this question here, we see quite mix. We see some of the orange and red faces here for sure. This is a good question to take a look into when we are planning for the future of our city. So thank you. Moving into the next question. How would you rate your neighborhood's current level of bike and pedestrian connectivity to daily goods and services? Can you use anything other than a car to access your daily needs, such as eating establishment, exercise? You see a mix of results here, mostly in the red, orange faces. We'll transition to the next question. What are your ideas for improving connectivity in your neighborhood? Hopefully we have helped you here. Imagine if. And now we ask for your ideas. So please tell us. We are here to listen to you and tell us what you think, how to make your neighborhood more connected.
On WebEx, Angela says a grocery store downtown would be amazing. And the Different Family says sidewalks to connect North residents to the city. The road is narrow at high speeds.
Those are great comments. Staff are getting this and entered into full agreement. We see here more bicycle lanes and major roads. And we see a growing list here. Widen some of the streets, grocery store in downtown would be amazing. More amenities. More walk friendly. And keep in mind, you have access to the survey here for a week. You are more than welcome to add to the list. And if you have missed us here tonight, please go ahead and enter your comments. So far, we see that the need for road improvement and sidewalk improvement to encourage people to bike and walk.
Angela on WebEx agrees that sidewalks are good and in her particular neighborhood, it's not bad, but there's a lot of room for improvements. She loves that you're doing this.
Nice. Angela, if you can help us, if you can tell us what area, if you were with us earlier on the presentation, what area of the neighborhood, or to tell us just the roads so we can be a little bit more specific. And you're more than welcome to email us any comments that you would like to communicate to us. This is great. We see a growing list here. We'll move to the next slide here and we'll talk about a walkable center.
Oh, so this is, I guess, just for the folks on Facebook, and I guess I didn't need to do this, but I will when I've started. So we are having a big lag on Facebook. So anyone entering comments here on Facebook, our staff will enter them tomorrow morning. So those folks are.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Moving to the next slide here. We will regularly visit one concept as we go through the rest of our discussion here. And the one concept is the walkable center. What is a walkable center? Walkable centers are well connected to surrounding areas, accessible by multiple modes of transportation. They are the places where communities do things together. Everything from working, shopping, learning, playing, and celebrating. A walkable center has 4 key elements, as you see here in the slide. A walkable center has mixed-use center. A walkable center is a pedestrian-oriented. A walkable center has or offers multimodal access. And a walkable center provides housing scale transitions to adjacent neighborhoods, mainly diverse housing in this case. So now we have an idea of what is a walkable center. What you see here in this slide is a snip from our missing middle housing study performed by Optics last fall. Please take a moment to read along with me here. We will be asking you later what you imagine in the following slides. Neighborhood, many commercial, or in general, this is another definition or a similar definition. So what is a walkable center? Walkable center is a neighborhood that has a neighborhood mini commercial / employment area closely integrated within a residential component of the neighborhood. Simply a place you can get quickly for daily needs. Most things within 10 to 5 minutes walk from your home or work. Street designed to enable and encourage walking. Access to public transit and incremental change. So now we have an idea of what a walkable center is. The next few questions will ask you more about your preferability towards walkable centers. What are your thoughts and reactions to the idea of a walkable center in your neighborhood? We would love to hear what you have imagined. Now you have an idea what is a walkable center. Go ahead.
First on WebEx says from Fifth West, from Fairway Estates to the INL buildings needs a sidewalk.
That's a very good comment. Not plausible to convert our neighborhood that way. That's a comment that we need to hear, and thank you for voicing your opinion. I would love to be able to walk to a market or small grocery store. We are seeing your opinions and comments popping up here on the screen. I'm glad the city is trying to plan and manage this growth with direction. Love these plans. And you can vote on any of those suggestions and opinions. The suggestions and opinions that has a higher vote will populate top first. This is beautiful. Walkable center is beautiful. Yes to grocery store and more local shops. It will be nice to have school located closer to home. I would love to be able to walk to market. Our neighborhood is in an island away from the city. It doesn't seem feasible here. Those are great comments. Will improve the city. Awesome. Once again, you have access to the survey here for a week. You're more than welcome to visit the link, add to your answers, edit your answers. And if you have missed us tonight, you have the opportunity to fill out the survey. Transitioning to the next slide. And before I do so, do we have any more comments on Facebook or WebEx? Question number 8 here. Does your neighborhood have a walkable center? Please take a moment to consider your area and let us know if your neighborhood has a walkable center. We see no as an answer here. It is the only answer to this question. All right. We'll transition to the next slide. If you said no to the previous slide, where do you imagine a walkable center should go in your neighborhood? This is a great exercise where you are the expert in your area. You are trying to tell us where a walkable center should go in your neighborhood. We'll give it a minute here for answers to populate. And meanwhile, do we have any comments on WebEx or Facebook? So for the folks, seems to be the majority of answers were no to the previous questions. Please tell us where a walkable center should go in your neighborhood. There's an answer here that says use some farmland by the river for commercial development. Doesn't seem plausible and like farmland. close to INL buildings. The people working in this area. Maybe near the INL buildings. The industrial buildings, bit south towards Cherry would be amazing. Those are great comments. Please keep your answers coming, and as well as you have the ability to vote answers up and down. Land just east of Sage Lake Golf Course. Us from the golf course. All right. Thank you so much for those answers. You are giving us an idea here on where a walkable center should go in your neighborhood. We are seeing two coming out this year near the golf course as well as the INL campus. All right, we'll transition to the next question. For this question, if you said yes, in a few words, describe where your neighborhood's walkable center is. 2 slides back, the majority, if not all questions, all answers to the question was no. And here, if you said yes, or if you are filling out the survey later, tell us where a walkable center is in your neighborhood. The closest thing for me would just be downtown area. If there is none in your neighborhood, what is the closest walkable center to where you live? And feel free to tell us what walkable center that is. There is none. We cannot walk to anything safe. This is part of the reason we are bringing those questions to the table, to bring sense of safety and to engage everyone with the discussion while we grow here. So again, if you know of a walkable center nearby, comment that, and thank you for your answers here. And this is the end of my part here. I will move the presentation, and my colleague here, Brad, will take the lead. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, thank you very much, Anis, and thank you for all the comments. This is great to see this community conversation developing. Before you leave, I know we're kind of through the main topics for the evening, but we do have a couple of final things as we wrap up tonight together. First of all, we want to ask you, what did we not cover that you would have liked to have talked about? What did we not discuss? So this is your opportunity to help us think a little bit deeper than maybe what we have done so far. Tell us what we need to think about as we move forward and digest the material that you've given us tonight. What did we not talk about? Did you wish we would have covered? This is the one screen where I'm excited when it's blank because it makes me feel like we covered everything. Go ahead and tell us if we didn't. Yeah, the rec center again. So you're seeing some very similar comments meeting to meeting. Ways to improve green spaces, plant trees along streets and neighborhoods, more parks. Yeah. So spend some more time talking about those recreation needs. Yeah, good comments. Any others that you would add? Give you here just another moment. We have one on WebEx.
Chris on WebEx has a possible freeway through the Heritage Hills and Fairway Estates. Ruins this vibe.
I caught all of it, the last few words. Ruins what?
Ruins the vibe you are encouraging.
Okay. Yeah. So, and again, we appreciate you bringing that up. The Highway 20 is a big deal, that reroute. And we wish we knew at this point which direction the state was going to go with it. Let's take a couple of short-term achievable goals for improving the community. Yeah, good point. Yeah, talking about what the actual goals would be. More than just residential, how do we incorporate the growth of industry? Yeah, so as we meet with realtors that deal with industry, there is a huge market still for those issues. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Swimming facilities, splash pads, pretty thorough, thank you. And thank you to all these comments. To add to the rec center comments, no decent public indoor pool community. Okay, so I actually want to address this comment here just quickly, focused on just our neighborhood, didn't put it in the bigger picture. So that's actually on our final invitation, is we're going to invite you to take a survey that does cover the entire city, because we agree with you. There's a time to talk about a neighborhood, there's a time to talk about the city as a whole. So we will invite you here in just a moment to participate in that citywide conversation. Yeah, so there we go. Possible freeway, short-term achievable goals. Concern about South Capitol Park and water tower. Right? Yeah, we did not cover that tonight, and appreciate you bringing that up. Lack of public transportation. Right. Giving growth for upper income housing, not many options. City limits. Yeah, no, so I appreciate it. This is actually very helpful as we think about how we can improve, how we can broaden that conversation as we come back and talk to you. So this question will stay live for just a moment, although the screen will change here on WebEx. Let me tell you where we're headed with this conversation. So we're just at the tail end of our public discussions, our phase one. We have one more neighborhood meeting left on March 31st, the area south of Sunnyside, and our citywide survey will wrap up on April 8th. And then after that, we're going to take the time to digest this information between April and June, draft policies, projects, those goals, based on what you've told us and based on research that we're doing in the background of all this work, and come back to you with a phase two of public discussion sometime in July and August. We don't have the dates set yet. And as COVID continues to evolve, the situation continues to evolve, we don't know what that meeting looks like yet. Our hope is that we can be in person with you in a safe way and still continue to offer the online option as well, as it does provide a good opportunity for people to participate. So all of this will come back. This is not the only opportunity you have to participate. What we want to do in that phase two is make sure that we got it right. And then you can give us commentary on how we need to adjust the plans. And then this will ultimately turn into the city's comprehensive plan that will take forward for adoption in the fall. So before you leave again, I have a couple of calls to action for all of you. We greatly appreciate your time with us tonight. We hope that you'll give us just a little bit more. As I mentioned, there's the citywide survey that we invite you to take. It takes 10 minutes or less. If you go to imagineif.city, you'll see a link there to the survey. If you struggled again with Poll Everywhere or want to think about these questions and come back and answer later, add some more to it. Again, at imagineif.city, you can find the survey for this specific neighborhood. This will be available for 1 week. It'll be available till next Wednesday morning, and we'll pull that down. We also invite you at imagineif.city. You'll see a link to leave us a video memory. We are trying to collect stories, photos, etc., of the memories that you have of Idaho Falls, so that we make sure that we capture the character and it's made Idaho Falls the way it is. It's made it the great community that it is today. And then if you want to keep up to date on the ImagineIF project, this is also important. Make sure that you give us your email. Now, if you're on WebEx, we'd certainly invite you to enter your email into the chat. If you're on Facebook and don't want to display your email for the whole wide world to see, shoot us an email at imagineif@idahofallsidaho.gov. You can see that at the top of the screen. And we will add you to our distribution list as we continue to roll out this project so that you stay informed. And feel free to share any of this with neighbors that you think would have been interested, but maybe couldn't make it tonight, maybe didn't get the word out. That's always a struggle that we have, is getting the word out to as many people as we would like to, as hard as we try to do that. So feel free to share this. Again, please take a moment to take the survey. On a particular note with the survey for this neighborhood, we are having a great result with our survey, but this is the only area in Idaho Falls that were just a few surveys short of achieving statistical validity. And I know that's a nerdy word, but what that helps us to do, if we can get just a few more people in this neighborhood to take the survey, it will tell us, help us understand what you've told us tonight, how it correlates with that citywide picture that was mentioned in the comments about what did we miss. So again, please just take 10 minutes, take that survey, pass that link around. Let's see if we can get over that threshold with our survey goal. So again, thank you one more time for spending a little over an hour with us. We greatly appreciate your input. We hope that you'll continue to engage with us. Give us your email, send us your thoughts. We really are interested in what you have to say. So with that, we'll go ahead and end the meeting, and thank you once again.